Good day, students. Today it is time for the 7th and final installment of this series, where I attempt to give you an overview of each unit's eidolons and my recommendations for whether they are worth the Stellar Jade's investment or not. Going on a vertical investment on your account might not be the best option, given the number of good units released in recent patches. For those of you who already have an established roster of units and are looking to improve it, this series might be just the thing for you. Also, with Aventurine's banner still going and Xuan's rerun just around the corner, I feel this is the perfect ending for this series, with the hopes that, just like the path we are going to discuss today, this series will also persevere even though we will have soon reached its conclusion. Let us take a look at the eidolons available to the preservation cast of the game and the ways they can improve your units. Please note that these recommendations are based on my personal experience with the units, how they perform at E0, and what they lack in their base form. As such, I have formulated this guide based on the importance of each eidolon in fixing a particular unit problem from its base kit. This guide is highly subjected to subjectivity on my end, even though I have tried to keep it as objective as possible. Therefore, if you feel a certain eidolon works better for you compared to what I am about to mention, that is entirely your prerogative, and each and every one of you is entitled to play the game as you want. As always, every piece of content in this game can be fully cleared with E0 units without issue. As is tradition, I will briefly go over each unit's strengths and weaknesses in the next section so you will better understand the upcoming analysis of each of their eidolons. Also, each eidolon will be analyzed, considering you already had the previous eidolon and are debating the investment needed to secure the one in question as well. This is why you will see some units have their E1 not recommended, but their E2 recommended. I will not go over the E3 and E5 eidolons because these are just extra levels for all your abilities on each unit, and of course, all of them are worth getting because they are just straight-up damage buffs for each of the units. I will just leave you with a note on which unit is applicable, so you can know which one of the two will provide the most damage. Let's touch on what you should be looking for in eidolons for units on this path. For preservation units, you want to aim for the eidolons which will provide your unit with additional ways of buffing your team, or which will add additional ways of keeping your team alive. Eidolons which improve their own stats, so they can be more resilient, are also decent. Eidolons that provide you with energy are always great, so you can smooth out your rotation. March 7th. A niche option for a preservation unit. She still has some things going for her, despite almost being faded out of existence, like the fact that she has a cleanse on demand from her skill. Her shield is also pretty decent in value. She also has an aggro boost to the target affected by her shield, and she can be slotted in follow-up teams. You cannot solo sustain a team, and while the shield is decent in harder content, you will have to constantly reapply it in order to keep up with the damage. If the enemy is immune to freezing, her ultimate becomes non-existent. Aventurine, good single and AoE break, and damage potential for a preservation unit, has a crit damage buff for the team from his ultimate, amazing stackable shields with a nice uptime on them. You are dependent on luck to fully activate his kit. Xuan. Broken, just way too overtuned. She will put your kids through college if you have her. Requires a bit of investment to maximize. Gepard. Thick shields for the entire team from his ultimate can absorb a decent amount of heat from his aggro value and are resilient thanks to his passives. Shields tied to his ultimate lack supportive buffs for the team compared with the other 5-star options. March 7th. E1. Decent energy gain, especially in AoE scenarios where you could theoretically keep on spamming her ultimate to keep the enemy in the Ice Age. Against freeze-resistant enemies, this will see no value. decent pickup only if used in the right scenario. E2. While a nice addition, this will not enable her to solo sustain, and it also has a small amount of uptime of just 3 turns. Not recommended. E4. A decent option if you plan to use her with other follow-up units, otherwise it will be insignificant. E6. Again, a nice heal addition, but it will also not enable her to solo sustain the team, as the skill is still applied to one ally, and in harder content, you will have to keep reapplying it. Not recommended. Aventurine, E1. More crit damage for your allies alongside more shields as well. Great pickup, although you will not need it. E2. 12% all-type resistance reduction from using his basic attack is pretty insane, although it will only benefit you in single-target scenarios. Good pickup as it adds additional damage increase for the team. E4. Thicker shields after his talent will proc, and it will also boost the damage of the follow-up with the additional damage instances it will do. Decent, but not recommended. E6. While enticing for the additional damage Aventurine will do in order to maximize his use as a solo sustainer, this one is not needed. If you want to have him be a sub-DPS, go for it. Xuan, E1. Basically, a permanent 30% crit damage for your entire team is amazing, but is not needed as you can use Keel on her and get a third of this value for free. E2. Basically, Bailu's revive mechanic, but you do not need this under any circumstance, as your allies will not get close to dying with her on the team anyway. E4. Good energy gain allowing you to use your ultimate more often, meaning more triggers for herself and heals for the team. Good pickup for comfort. E6. Turns her ultimate into a mini-nuke in AoE scenarios at least, but is by no means necessary unless you want to build her DPS for the fun of it. Gepard, E1. More freeze chance, which could help your team survive by delaying the enemy attacks. Not recommended though, as there are also freeze immune enemies for which this effect will be worthless. E2. Builds on the increased chance from his E1 to freeze the enemy by also reducing the target's speed. Also not recommended in most cases, but if you use him with allies which want as many debuffs on the enemy as possible, such as Dr. Ratio or Acheron, this one is a decent pickup. This is true for his E1 as well. E4. Decent boost to the team's effect resistance, which can be the difference from your carry getting crowd controlled or not. Good pickup. E6. Not recommended, as in an ideal scenario, you will not have to be in the situation where his talent will be triggered. Well, even though their roster was smaller compared to the previous paths, Preservation still has some of the stronger units of the game, which are fundamentally important for everyone looking to have success in this game. So I leave you today with a better understanding of the strengths of each unit, as well as their weaknesses. For the last time, let me hear your plans for the future. Are you planning on starting to vertically invest in your preservation units? And if so, how far are you planning to go, or how far have you already gotten? Let me know in the comments below. I also want to take a moment to thank each and every single one of you who took the time to watch every part of this big series, as well as those of you who maybe only watched just this video, or just a couple of them. I truly hope this series will reach the greatest number of trailblazers it can possibly reach so that everyone can make the most informed decision regarding their stellar jades, so that, in the end, everyone can have the best time playing this game. And until next time, I am Professor Veritas Ratio, and remember, stay smart and sexy.